right? So we talked about development, testing, and and operations, which is more to do with how your day-to-day activities would happen. But how does the software gets developed, right? When let's say you talk to, you have a new customer, you have a project. How does it go through various phases to complete that particular software or the product, right? The first phase, which happens generally in case of software development, is the requirements phase, where we understand what is required, what needs to be done, what are the inputs, what are the output, what is the performance, everything that a customer needs, right? What is the user interface that the customer is looking for? Is it a web, desktop, mobile application? If it's mobile, how does it communicate? The complete requirement of the application is first analyzed, and then that will help so that you know exactly what is required. Once the requirement is done, a detailed design is done, a design which might include your database design, your architecture, your individual components, and UI, backend, API, everything, right? So once you have the requirements clarified and clear, you have your design phase. Now, once your design is done, you know very clearly how to achieve, you go ahead and do your development. Now, development mainly includes your coding and unit testing, right? You do your coding and you ensure the code is working as expected using either manual or automated unit testing. And once your application is developed from your development team, it would go to your QA to do a end-to-end validation of your uh, uh, application, and any bugs or any issues are fixed. And once everything is verified, the product is released to the market for end users to use it. So this is a typical, very basic and very foundational process of how a software gets developed. Now, one thing to note here is, depending on your which process you follow, this whole each stage may take months or it may take days. Example, in some cases, the requirement itself may take 2 or 3 months. In some cases, requirement might be a couple of days, and similarly for other stages also. So, how does now this is a very high level process, right? So how does your companies or even a generally company develop the software and ensure the time spent is effectively used to deliver a product which is required in the market, right? So in this webinar, we will focus on two of the processes. One is one is called the waterfall model, and the agile or scrum, which is more common now. I think you all would have heard about the scrum or an agile model. And waterfall is a legacy kind of a older process which we were following before agile scrum came in, right? So we will focus on how each of the stages of software development uh, uh, are taken care in both the process here, and then understand their benefits and what are the drawbacks of the same. Okay, so first one is the waterfall. Waterfall is basically, it's like you have each stage of your software development fall preceding with the, or once you're done with requirement, then only you start your design. Once you're done with your design, you go to the development. So you spend that complete time on requirements only to gather the requirements, to ensure they're clear, ensure everything is detailed out, to not to miss or not to add additional. So the complete requirements are managed and documented over a period of time. It might be, as I said, it might be a month, 2 months, depending on the application type and application size. So once the requirement is all done and documented, and everybody, a customer and everybody signs off, then you spend the same amount of time to do a design, document a detailed design document, including architecture, the infrastructure, and the hosting environments, and everything is documented as part of your design, again, which is reviewed and signed off. Once that is done, you go through a long process of implementing the application as per the design, which is where your development and unit testing you would go through that process of coding and unit testing. This again might take months together depending on your application. Once that is done, you go ahead with your QA verification, and then finally you put it to production and maintain it, right? Now, in case of waterfall, right, it is one stage after the next, right? You cannot directly jump from requirements to implementation. You need to go through the design phase, and each phase will take probably, as I said, months together or weeks together. And then, typically what happens in such waterfall is you start with requirement ABC. By the time you complete and go to market, the requirements would have changed, or customer feedback would have changed. Customer are expecting something else. So with waterfall, you get a very stable and very completely tested and working software product, but there's every chance that you may get a product which is may not be what the market needed, or what a product may not really achieve what the customer needs, because you would have spent 3 months, 6 months to go through the whole process. In 6 months anything can change, right? So that's on the waterfall, where it's each phase has its own dedicated skills, dedicated team, who are focused and experts in getting a requirement, those who are experts in designing and architecture side. So each of them will spend their time, their talent, their skills to complete their phase and then move on to the next, and so the others can go, other teams can take up and do, right? So this is a waterfall model. The drawback being it takes it the advantage being, you get a very stable and very clear requirement and stable application tested working fine. But the drawback is you may spend 6 months, long time, and realize that this is not what we wanted, right? So that to avoid this was a common problem. This was commonly used process a decade back, and then they were to solve the problem of creating a software which the market may not need. The processes like Agile and Scrum started coming in, and that's where we'll go into the next process, where we talk about the agile process. As it means, it is something that where you or the company or the team is very flexible and agile for a new set of requirements. It's not like you don't spend months together or weeks together to get a requirement and then freeze it and just work on those requirements. So the whole process is to ensure that the team is ready to take up new requirements if and when they come up. If this week you're working on requirement 1, 2, 3, or in this case, let's say the feature 1, 2, and 3, and customer comes back and says that I don't want feature 2 and 3, but I need another feature 4 and 5. The Agile allows you to add these in your next release, which is probably next week. But a waterfall doesn't allow. Waterfall will not take any feedback until you complete the current requirements to before you take new. So the Agile is a process where you as a team you decide what is known as a sprint. A sprint might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, depending on the application and the team size, and then you in that 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in each sprint, you deliver a set of features which are prioritized and agreed by the customer. And once the features are developed in a span of 2 to 3 weeks, you will do the whole process of the software development, right from you will get the requirements, you'll do the design, unit testing, you do a detailed validation, and then release it. So this whole cycle of software development happens in a short span of a sprint, right? Now the number of requirements and features depend on the team size, the number of developers, and everything. And finally, every 3 weeks, every sprint, you release it to the market, and then you get back the feedback and take that feedback to plan your next sprints and next releases. So this is where when you are trying to develop an application and features every 2 weeks, every sprint, you needed and we need a software or a process which is consistent and which is very automated approach. That's where the DevOps and CI/CD comes into picture, because most of the time spent on deploying, validating, and monitoring the application, if that can be automated, your sprints can focus on developing the application while your validation and monitoring is automated using processes, right? So that's where the Agile and DevOps, you see a lot of benefits and value of DevOps in Agile more than a waterfall, because in Agile you'll be deploying code almost every day and then validating your changes instead of validating at the end of the development cycle. So that's one thing where DevOps and Agile together will help are helping products and companies to deliver new features and new applications to the market every week or every month, right? So what you see here is in a typical agile process, you don't have requirements, you have features. Each feature will have user stories, and in every sprint, we along with the complete team decide what are the features we will take up for this sprint, and go ahead and develop the sprint develop the features, and then use the CI/CD to deploy the application and the features on a regular basis to complete your features in a sprint. Right, and what you see at the bottom is a source control, or a branching for your source code, which we'll get into a bit more details. But this is a basic agile process where instead of spending months together as we do in Waterfall, you have a sprint. In each sprint, you take up features, you develop them, you use automated CI/CD process to quickly test your features and put it to production.